Hey guys, um, it's a little bit darker than usual, but it's a beautiful day, so I thought I'd let the windows give me light today. Um, so I believe when I left off last time, I believe that I was uh, talking about how, um, I had found a reason to stay around was, um, I had decided for whatever reason I took it upon myself that, um, my reason for being here was basically to make sure to keep my sister safe and then I had decided, then and there that I no longer believed in the things that I was taught as far as religion wise. So um, I had decided that, you know, that was that. Um, I don't know if I had really discussed. I'm sure that I touched upon it, but up to kind of that point, um, I know that I had talked about how my hair had been like long, and I initially had cut my hair, um, short once I was allowed to, but initially it was long, down to basically down to my butt. Um, I don't know. I found it very strange the first time that I ever went to a different church. I went with a friend when I was in school, when I was younger. I went with a friend once, and I was allowed to go because it was a church function. But I found it very strange that in other churches, women in particular, wore uh, pants, and I found that very strange because every church that I was allowed, well, the church that I was going to, which by the way was like this huge mega church, it was insane. It was big, huge. I mean, more to the point that they had a huge raised stage and these big huge screens that would come down because the church was so big that you couldn't always see the stage, and huge choir, a full band, like a drummer, sax player. um I mean, like, it was a big church. Yeah, so um growing up, we were forced to wear skirts and dresses. That was it. Um, so up to that point, that's kind of how I had always known it. Going to another church, I never realized that it was acceptable anywhere else to not have to wear that. Um, I thought it was really strange. Um, and then, of course, now as an adult, I don't obviously I don't go to church or anything because like I said, I don't believe, but I have been inside churches for various things, whether it be for weddings or what have you, and I have found that you know I don't think I haven't been. I've only been inside the same Pentecostal church as an adult, I think once, and that was for a funeral in my family. Aside from that, I've been inside different denominational churches, and everybody, you know, they just dress in clothes. They don't have to wear, certain things, which is, like I said, pretty wild to me. But in any case, that was kind of off off the rails a little bit. But yeah, so yeah, being the person that had, that was forced to, um, keep long hair, wear dresses or skirts, all like at all functions that had to do with church. Now, I didn't have to do that every day of my life, which I'm thankful for. Um, but again, as you know already, there were still things that were, excuse me, regulated. So I wasn't allowed to wear the things that I wanted to wear or the things that I felt like made me me. All right, so we're at the point where religion just ain't doing it for me, and so I kind of feverishly write all the time. It's just kind of my outlet on things. I accidentally, I didn't realize that anybody was paying attention because, generally speaking, no one ever really did. But I was in study hall one day in school, and I just happened to be writing, and the study hall teacher I didn't notice was walking past my desk and happened to stop. He was reading over my shoulder and then told me that I should publish my writings and that it was really bizarre that a young kid could write like they've been, they've lived such a full life and have all this stuff. And what do you say to that? I wasn't writing for people to enjoy it, and while I felt embarrassed that she had read it, it also kind of made me feel good that there was a little bit of validation in that. Oh, you see that what I'm feeling is something. And that felt kind of nice to know that somebody could see that other than myself. After that, no one got to see what I wrote or anything because I kept it to myself. To this day, very few people have seen anything that I've wrote. I did once, on Mother's Day, write a poem for my birth mother and give it to her. And I think that came from the fact that I got kind of this, this bump of encouragement, from that teacher. But it was always that I wrote it as though everything was fine, as though everything was great, actually. I wrote it like she was understanding and giving and supportive. I wrote it like she was the mother that I needed. And I think for a long time I convinced myself that she was. I just didn't deserve it, and that's why I wasn't getting the mother that I needed. Was there, I just wasn't getting it because I didn't deserve it. I felt like I was chasing it like my entire life, right? Like, I'm just, if I'm a little bit better at this or I'm a little bit better at that, you can be good enough then to be accepted, be loved, be whatever it is for everything that you felt like you needed out of that relationship. When I graduated, um, when I graduated, I moved out, and I moved in with this lady that I had worked with, and it was her and her husband, and little did I know that that was going to be a rather uncomfortable scenario. I moved in and I wasn't there very long because I got the feeling that I was supposed to participate in sexual acts with them, and it made me feel very uncomfortable. So I left, and I moved back in with birth mom for a very short stint, and I wasn't there very long. And then I got my own apartment, and I moved in there, and also, so we're clear, there's a lot of things that I'm not talking about as far as the highlights of things. So, for instance, when I moved into this apartment, birth mother did come with me and help me get my apartment cleaned up so I could get moved in. That was a big plus. That was a big helpful situation for me. She let me come back and move back in when I moved out after graduation because I had nowhere else to go. So she let me move, back into the house, which was a big win for me. When I graduated, she, with the help, I'm sure, of some other folks, but she threw me a graduation party. It took place at the church, but nevertheless, she still did that. That was a really nice and kind thing to do. So, granted, everything that I talk about here is, I'm not attempting to just point out nothing but bad. I know that's all the bad is basically coming across. I plan on touching on some of the good stuff too. But the way my brain works, it's kind of like I have to focus on one thing than the other. So, that's, just keep it in mind that that's not to say that there weren't, nice things or good qualities or kind gestures made towards me. No, I will also say that in my line of therapy work, I have found out that yes, there were nice things happening, and yes, there were good things that were, very nice and all that stuff, but ultimately, I mean, it was still not, that was like bare minimum type stuff, because that's kind of what is expected out of a parent. I didn't see it like that for a really long time, though. That's why it was really hard for me to come to terms with I wasn't the problem. It wasn't me that was lacking, and it wasn't me that was the reason that I wasn't getting the love and the affection that I deserved or needed. It wasn't my fault. So, kind of keep that in the back of your mind as well, because, again, there were good things, kind things. It wasn't all just gloom and doom, but um, it doesn't, for me anyways, it doesn't outweigh um, all the hurt. So, uh, anyways, I got my first apartment, and that was nice. It was nice to have my own space. I started working, and like at a factory. Started making pretty decent money, and especially for a 17-year-old. I had intended to go to college, but I needed to take some time away from school because the bad grades and stuff that I got, and it kind of scared me away from college, because of the way that I struggled in most of my grades, since everything kind of happened as a kid. It made me rethink whether or not I could make it in college and whether or not I could hack it. And that was really scary for me because obviously I was going to be paying for college. Um, you know, birth mom didn't have money to pay for college, and she certainly wasn't going to be able to help me. So if I wasn't going to be able to pay for it or have scholarships of any sort, um, to help me pay for this, then I was SOL. And then um, furthermore, I'm going to school, I got to pay for it. So, do I want to run the risk of I'm paying for something that I'm ultimately failing, and then, I'm out a ton of money that I can't really afford anyway? Vicious cycle. And that honestly probably, I think, is still continuing today because let's be real, our economy is jacked. So, you know, I decided instead of making a rash decision right away, I would take a break from school and get some work under my belt, put some money away, and see, what I could do from there. Um, so, had I been exceptionally smart, I would have stashed away a load of money. However, I was a kid and, decided that, uh, you know, CDs needed a lot of my time, and going out dancing on the weekends needed a lot of my time. And I started dating my first real girlfriend. And it just so happens that I had went to school with her, and she was going to school like 2 hours away, and she was in college. And so while I was working, I would visit as often as I could. So on the weekends, a lot of the times, I would come home, take a shower. And I worked second shift, so I would come home, take a shower, and then drive the 2 hours to stay with her for a night or two, and then drive back home and to go to work and do it all over again through the week. So that's where a lot of my money went, was, gas. I had also picked up the nasty habit of smoking. Um, Birth mom was a smoker, smoked in the house my entire life. I hated it. I tried to, I think a lot of kids, especially at least in my generation, I can very much remember all the uh, things that they come in and talk to you at school, the dare and all that stuff, and, drinking and driving, and they start talking about, especially when you're young, about the dangers of smoking and, what it does to you. And I would come home and, beg her to stop, and please, please, I don't want you to die. Please stop. And, of course, those, pleadings went nowhere. And, I basically, from day one, from pretty much the day that I was born on up, uh, it was like a ticking time bomb waiting for me to be a smoker, because I essentially grew up being addicted to nicotine. Um, because, I mean, I was breathing it in every day. Um, every one of my siblings also are smokers. Um, I'm proud to say I'm not now, but I've smoked for 22 years, so um, it's a long time. Uh, yeah, so, uh, you know, c- cigarettes, I mean, were much cheaper then than are now, but I still was, smoking, and, um, of course, trying to spend money, on my girlfriend when I could. I mean, I was really freaking poor, but I was paying rent, and um, I had was paying for my first car, which, by the way, one of my other family members had found, and thought that I would be interested in, uh, and you know, so that was like a big win for me, because um, I didn't really have that, here where I grew up. I mean, I wasn't getting, that kind of help, and so I was able to pay one of my family members like my payment until I paid it off to them for what they paid for it, and or what they were selling it to me for. And um so I my that was one of the first situations I was able to get through. Was It was just an old car, but it ran good, and yeah, it was a good car. So yeah, was paying for that, paying for my insurance, of course. Um, you know, paying for a home phone. Yeah, I know. Because we didn't have cell phones really then. So, I mean, we did, but they weren't as prominent as they are now. Um, so I paid for a home phone. I paid for rent. I paid for car insurance, food, you know, normal adult stuff that you have to start paying for when you're out on your own. I was paying for all of that, which I was paying for some of it before anyway, but and then of course I didn't have, like a washer and dryer and stuff in my apartment, so I had to go to the laundromat, which, cost money, and um, you know, gas, back and forth, every weekend is a lot of, gas, and all that good stuff. So anyways, yeah, that's, but I had my first girlfriend, right? I mean, that's a pretty big deal, because I mean, I wasn't even like allowed to talk about that. So I was pretty excited about that. Now, my girlfriend did eventually come out to her parents, but at the time, at first, she wasn't. And so, we kind of kept things quiet as best as we could. And again, we were both still really young, so, I mean, like, I don't know, I guess it was like, the first time that you feel like real freedom, but then also looking back now, it's like, man, we were just babies, um, just learning things, I guess. Um, so, um, finally, uh, I got to do adult stuff that I wanted to do, um, which, of course, when, it's like the first time, and it's kind of fumbly and weird, and whatever it is, it's like, it is. And, but it felt very freeing, and I can look back fondly and think, while it was you know, silly, and we were babies, and God, what we were doing, I don't know, it was ridiculous. But ultimately, looking back at where I was at, and then, that relationship, and then that, at that time, it felt so much like I had just, it was like lightning striking, right? It was like, figured everything out. Bam, done. That's my life. Had it all figured out at 17, obviously, right? Uh, I mean, what else could there possibly be? I've got it all figured out. This is great. I mean, hello. Boy, 17-year-olds. Yeah. All right. Well, so here's what's going on with that, right? 17. We dated for a couple of years. Um, much to how it normally works is that, uh, I was young, she was young, and just didn't, it just kind of stopped working, and um, I don't know, it just didn't work, right? I mean, it just didn't work. There was a big distance between the both of us. Um, we were young and dumb, and just didn't work. So, and we broke up, and um, I was single for a while, and I started seeing this other girl, and we worked together, and that didn't last very long because that was a whole nother ball game. She was cuckoo cuckoo. She had some issues going on. I don't know what was going on with her as far as how she was raised, but of course, back in the day, I mean, I was like, what, what the hell's going on? But ultimately, looking back now, I can say, the poor girl probably had some mental health issues that she needed some help with, and I was definitely not equipped to deal with that. Being like 18, I mean, I just wasn't 18 or 19, I can't remember, but I was not equipped to deal. Um, I mean, we got into arguments. She put her hands on me. Throwing shit. It was a bad situation, which, again, looking back now, ultimately, it it tracks, right? I mean, it tracks with my relationships, right? Because everything was kind of dysfunctional pretty much for the entirety of my life. So it would track to have a dysfunctional, intimate relationship, and that's exactly what it was. Very dysfunctional, very not working at all. Very not good. Not good at all. Um, that ended, thankfully, and both of us somehow made it out alive, and that was fine. Um, which is good, and we went our separate ways, which is fantastic. Um, Me and the first girlfriend kind of started seeing each other again for a short time, but ultimately it didn't stick. Um, I mean, I think, looking back now, I mean, I truly, truly loved her. Um, and even now to this day, um, I still very much love her in a way that I hope that um, she gets nothing but good things for her life. Uh, I want her to find happiness, and if she hasn't, I hope that she does. And if she has, Congratulations. I hope that you have all the good things, because I feel like that's what you need. That's what you deserve. She was a very good person. It just didn't work out between us. So, regardless of the silly, petty kid stuff that we talked about, or did or didn't do, or however things went down, ultimately, I want the best for her. Anyways, so yeah, girlfriend 1 didn't work out. Girlfriend 2 was not a very good situation. Went back to girlfriend 1 for a short time. We realized that wasn't working, and then I go to my first gay club. I was underage, and one of my a guy that I worked with, had become pretty good friends with, had taken me up there. At the time, they would let you in with someone that was old enough to be like a chaperone type thing. So like they would let you in with like the special markings and stuff, so that bartenders knew that you couldn't drink because you weren't of age, but they would still let you in. And so I went in. I went in and watched a drag show for the first time, which blew my mind. That was one of the most amazing things I think I've ever seen in my whole life, right? I was just like, this is like where I belong. These are my people. It felt so free. No one felt like they were ashamed of who they were. There were people everywhere, people everywhere that looked like me, talked like me, acted like me, dancing just so free, walking around so freely. It was just, it was an incredible feeling. It was almost like I walked in nervous, not sure what to expect, and as soon as I walked in, I felt home. It's a bizarre feeling of trying to describe it, because it's like nothing I think I've really experienced before. And I don't know that it's something that you can ever, I don't think you can replicate it in any way, at least for that first time. And maybe it's different for everybody, and in some ways you still come up with the same conclusion. However, my experience it was mind-boggling for me. To walk in and not see people gawking at me and staring me down and thinking, holy cow. And then further that into, people approaching me and thinking that I was hot. People think that? People approach you and say you're hot? That aren't, like, and then what blew my mind even more was, when I went in, and I think it had to have been my first time that I went in, and someone approached me and was like, is this a boy or is this a girl? And because at the time I had my hair short, and someone was like, oh, well, this is a girl. And they were like, oh, okay. And I just thought it was bizarre that, one, they asked that, like, oh, that's okay to ask. Two, they didn't stutter one way or the other. It wasn't like it was a big to-do. And wait a minute, this is so bizarre. Feeling so free that you can walk in somewhere and people legitimately just, okay, you're here, cool, congratulations, welcome home, it's good to have you. Now, let's go watch the show. Very simple. Throw an arm around you and just walk with you. I mean, as cheesy as it sounds, that's exactly what it was like. And for the first time in the whole freaking world, I felt like I seriously had a family. And that is exactly what it's like being within your community for the very first time and really being able to say, wow, I'm actually accepted. That's what it's like to be accepted. To actually feel like you belong, it really does feel like family. So whether or not you actually have, blood relatives or not that will accept you, there are people out there that do. You don't have to explain anything. All you have to do is just tell them who you are, and they'll smile and welcome you in, because that's exactly what happens, which is incredible. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Yeah. What a feeling, right? Um, so, uh, finding the gay community and finding that niche is something that I will never take for granted, because that was something that was just, even though there are, there's always good and bad, right? I mean, there's good and bad within any community, you know, and gay culture certainly does have its cringy moments. If you're, if you're gay or even on the spectrum whatsoever, and you've spent any time delving into any of it, you know what I'm talking about when you're talking to, when I say, that it has its cringy moments. I mean, some people are in the gay community are some of the most judgmental jerk faces ever. But again, that goes without saying, right? Because I mean, there's a lot of people out there that are super judgy. Um, it's give and take on either side, but that particular situation, and finding out that there's like a whole damn world of people that exist and get together and just accept people because they're there, that whole notion just blew my mind. That is just wild to me. It was wild to me. So to this day, I still don't take it for granted that I found that. And I spent so many years wishing that I had had that, not feeling ashamed of who I was, or not knowing what to make of it, or who I was, as far as, not knowing what to make of who I was I really that bad of a person that I had to, pray every day to be not who I was, or was that really that bad? And I have this whole group of people just smiling at me just to be there. And granted, they probably didn't really think that necessarily, but just smiling at me and looking like me and acting like I felt like I wanted to act. That was all I needed. Acceptance is a damn beautiful thing. All right, kids. I'm going to leave off with this beautiful high because, man, why not, right? Acceptance is beautiful. I'll talk to you guys soon. Be good to each other.